You see this entire thing about China threatening its neighbors, that facing off China militarily, something that may be desirable in the short term. And the US military is still the most powerful military machine in the world. Today, every Western country, whether it's Canada, whether it's the US or the European countries, if you look at their national security doctrines, every single country says China is the biggest enemy. Jai Hind friends, I'm Major Gaurav Arya and you're watching the CHANAKYA Dialogues English. Like this video, subscribe to our channel and don't forget to press the bell icon. Friends, there is a lot of talk about industry relocating from China to India, and there was an article in a lot of magazines. I mean, a lot of newspapers and magazines have quoted this article that Wall Street is now looking to put its money in India rather than China. India is the new darling of the world economy, and here is some statistic for you. So now what's happening is that 2 decades before, India's economy stood at approximately 500 billion US dollars. Today, ladies and gentlemen, our economy stands at 3.5 trillion US dollars. They're saying that it's on a trajectory to go to 5 trillion US dollars. Now, so there are a lot of things in India that still need improvement. The overall business environment, the regulations, the laws, etc., to make it an economy that is growing faster. But what we have seen so far is that China, now the big investors, and I'm going to take a few names here and give you some more data, are putting their bets on India. They are, if I may use the word, decoupling from China gradually. China still remains the world's backend for manufacturing. I mean, everything is manufactured in China today, right from a toothbrush to mobile phones to you name it, it's manufactured in China. But the fact of the matter is that slowly and slowly people are disengaging from China, and the big investors, those billion-dollar hedge funds, are now putting their money on India. India has potential, India gives returns, India is a democracy, and India's rise in the economic markets is not opaque. This is something that is being bandied about. It is not an opaque system. It is a transparent system, therefore giving you that much more reason to trust it. So, Marshall Wace, a US $62 billion hedge fund, has positioned India as its biggest net long bet after the US. So, Marshall Wace, which has $62 billion funds, is a $62 billion hedge fund, says that after the US, earlier it used to be China, but after the US, they're saying we're putting our money on India because India matters. India's infrastructure expansion under Prime Minister Narendra Modi aims to attract global capital and supply chains away from China and India's population. While it remains largely poor, its stock markets are expensive and its bond markets insular, but investors are drawn to its growth potential. Now, India has overtaken Hong Kong, ladies and gentlemen, as the fourth largest stock market in the world, and people are saying it's edging towards the third. Third position is Japan, and Japan is at $6.2 trillion approximately. India has crossed 4 trillion as far as the stock market is concerned. Now, here are a few things that are happening, and it's making India a better destination for investment. 2-3 things. First of all, the US, and let me analyze this for you. Why is this happening? And suddenly, of course, there is a lot of infrastructural improvement in India. Old laws have been discarded, new laws have been put in place. It's a much more investor-friendly location now than it was maybe 10 years earlier or 20 years earlier. Today, people are looking at India differently. And those reasons for looking at India differently may or may not have anything to do with India at all. Now, let me explain why. Number one, we see that a lot of companies are moving away from China. And what is the reason for that? Does India offer a better ecosystem? Does India offer a better supply chain? Maybe not. India is improving day by day. But there are 3-4 factors here why companies are moving away from China to India and also to other countries, but especially to India. Number one is that China, till the time it was focusing on its economy and benefiting the world, everybody was speaking about China, and China was the toast. In every country, in every capital, in every stock market, it was China all along for nearly 3 decades. But what happened later was that China started militarizing very fast. Using the money that it had earned from the West, it started it started creating a system that started threatening the West and still threatens the West. This is something that the West will never tolerate, and China needs to know that its domestic consumption is not so much. And China needs to understand that at the end of the day, its economy is reliant upon the USA and upon Europe. That is how the Chinese must look at the situation, and they must understand, which unfortunately they do not. I think it's 30 years of super success has led to some degree of hubris, and the Chinese can no longer, look at the world as if they are service providers or product providers. Today, China says, we want to rule the world. It's going to be a bipolar world. Yes, there'll be a US, but there'll also be a China, and we will face off. And you see this entire thing about China threatening its neighbors, threatening other countries. This entire wolf warrior diplomacy. 5 years back, 7 years back, there was no wolf warrior diplomacy of China. 10 years back, there was nothing. If you go back 20 years, China was absolutely cool about everything. China did not take up any. I've served along the line of actual control, by the way. I've served at high altitudes. My company post was at around 14,000 feet above sea level. I've served there. We were bang on the line of actual control. I mean, bang in the sense that we were 100, 200 meters, 300 meters behind, but we were there. And I could see that fence, which was outside my company post, and beyond that, after some time, there was, or some distance, there was Tibet, Chinese occupied. And I've been there, and we have waved at Chinese troops, and we've had interactions, and Chinese troops would wave at us. And there were many times when they would cross over into India, and we would cross over into China, and it's all, hey, how are you? And they didn't know how to speak English, and we didn't know how to speak Mandarin, etc. But it was always very friendly. What happened in between? Why did China suddenly become aggressive? Why did Galwan happen? Why did Doklam happen? Why did all these things happen all of a sudden? This is because of a Chinese shift in policy after decades of economic super success. Suddenly China had the money, and suddenly China started rubbing the world the wrong way. And over a period of time, people said, and people realized that facing off China militarily is something that may be desirable, in the short term. And the US military is still the most powerful military machine in the world. And China doesn't hold a candle. China can say that we have more number of boats. But how many aircraft carriers does China have? And how many of those aircraft carriers that China has, maybe 3 now, how many of them are nuclear powered? None. None. So the question here is different. The question is, what can China actually do to the world? It can try and land grab. It's done a lot of that. China can be aggressive. China has put its money, checkbook diplomacy, buying up countries like Pakistan, buying up countries like Sri Lanka, buying up countries like Maldives, trying to influence countries like Nepal, creating chaos in the Middle East through Iran, creating chaos in Africa. China can do all of that because China has money. But a real war, a face-to-face, a real pitched battle, I don't think China is ready for that. China did fight a war. The last war that China fought was in 1979 against Vietnam. And it wasn't so pleasant for the People's Republic. They were beaten badly by the Vietnamese. Let me also put on record that everybody's been beaten badly by the Vietnamese. So no surprises there. The Russians were helping the Vietnamese at that point in time, but it was not direct help. They gave them training, they gave them weapons, and the Vietnamese beat the United States of America. So I mean, they've taken on superpowers and they've won. So coming back to the point that what happened was that it started threatening countries like the United States, and it started threatening countries across the European continent. And today, every country, every Western country, whether it's Canada, whether it's the US or the European countries, if you look at their national security doctrines, every single country says China is the biggest enemy. What happened? How did China, the backyard of world manufacturing, which every company relied upon, every country relied upon, every stock market relied upon, whether company, country, stock market, everybody's relying on China. Why has China become everybody's national security nightmare? It is because of the Chinese attitude, this Chinese sense of aggression, that we are the center of the world, we will dictate. It was not there earlier, as I mentioned. It came about later, after money. And so the world realized that the best way to control China was to hit China where it hurt China the most. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the Chinese economy. And how do you hit the Chinese economy? You hit the Chinese economy by disrupting their supply chain. Therefore, an agreement on supply chain resilience, to which many countries are signatory, including India, including Japan, including Australia, etc. They've signed off this document saying that, supply chain resilience. India is creating its own supply chains. And this is what this article says. This article clearly says that more and more people are now believing in India's supply chain in India, while the Chinese economy is still far, far ahead of India. But more and more people are pulling out their money from China and putting in their money into India. They're investing in India because they believe in the India story. And the last argument that I have here is, this is not something that India says. And I don't think India can say that diplomatically, at least. However, I think democracies need to engage with democracies. You see, you might condemn China's lack of democracy. You might say that it's put 1.5 million Muslims in jail. But why does that count for anything at all? It should not. Your condemnations cannot count for anything simply because you're still doing business with China. You feel that Russia did something wrong. You feel that Russia invaded Ukraine, therefore Russia should be sanctioned. All right. It's your wish. You can sanction Russia. But what about China? China has put 1.5 million Uyghur Muslims in jail just for the crime of being Muslims. 3-year-old kid. What's your name? My name is Muhammad. Off to jail. That's what China has done. Put entire families in re-education camps. China should be sanctioned. The world should stop doing business, including India. We should stop doing any sort of business with China. And this is how democracies will grow. Democracies need to engage with democracies, right? What is China? China is essentially Iran without the oil. And what is North Korea? North Korea is essentially China without the manufacturing. So the more democracies, interact with democracies, do business with democracies, the idea of a democratic world grows. You can't pay lip service to democracy and then do business with China, amongst the worst dictatorships in the world. With this, I come to the end of my video, and now we have question and answers for you, ladies and gentlemen. So the first question is Kushal Kumara Rao. He says, Jai Hind Gaurav Bhai, my name is Kushal, Jai Hind Kushal Bhai. I'm curious about Pakistani YouTubers who conduct public reactions in the streets of Lahore. Do you think that content is created primarily for views and earnings from India, or is it a form of expression akin to the thoughtful discussions you mentioned in your Chanakya Dialogues Hindi episode on mice? I'm also wondering if there could be a strategic influence from entities like ISI. Your insights. I think it's a mix of everything. I think in Pakistan, everything is monitored and controlled. So if you have anybody who is going on the streets of Lahore, people can say whatever they want from the drawing rooms, that's another thing, But if you have somebody going to the streets of Lahore and abusing the Pakistan army and calling out the Pakistani deep state, and there aren't any repercussions, then you know where all this is going. In a state like Pakistan where, there could be a YouTuber with several 100,000 subscribers, and publicly, because I know Pakistan very well, I've not been to Pakistan, but I understand Pakistan very well because I read about Pakistan every day. I watch Pakistani content, I read about Pakistan, I talk about Pakistan. This is almost like an obsession with me, so I can tell you very accurately. If a person in Pakistan is praising India and abusing their own generals publicly and doing it day after day after day as a profession, there's something wrong. Because this person, I have known people and I have known of people. The slightest criticism against a general or the chief, they would have disappeared for 2-3 days. In Pakistan, it's called updating software. So they take the person to an undisclosed ISI location, that beat that person, they strip him naked, beat him, put him in icy water, cold water, torture him, give him electric shocks, click photographs of that person absolutely naked, humiliate him, and then they let him go. As a lesson that next time you do this, we'll kill you. This is a soft warning. This is what happens in Pakistan. It's happened to so many people. Asad Tur got his arm broken. They entered his house. They beat him to pulp. They split his head open. They broke his arm. Asad Tur. You have Matiullah Jan. Matiullah Jan was picked up in front of a school or something like that. Matiullah Jan is an avid critic of the Pakistani deep state. And they picked him up. Hamid Mir, that famous journalist, he was shot thrice in the chest for criticizing. So this is very normal in Pakistan where journalists get killed, you know. Arshad Sharif, that famous journalist, he was shot, yeah. He was, I think, in Nigeria or someplace. His car was stopped and he was shot dead. And you see, Imran Riaz Khan was a journalist. I think for 4 or 5 months he disappeared. He just disappeared. And when he came back, he was a broken man. His family did not know where he was. So this is something that is par for the course in Pakistan. So if you have these YouTubers going around speaking, I find it difficult to believe that being in Pakistan, living in Pakistan, abusing the Pakistan army every single day, and then getting lakhs and lakhs of views from India, they're still able to live peacefully and safely in Pakistan. I'm not insinuating that they are part of ISI. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it. I'm just saying that I find it extremely surprising. That's all I'm saying. Kitty Ind. The question is, how did the lenders provide the money when they knew that they couldn't claim back? Coming to women's voting rights, isn't that based on their Islamic teachings? PK was created based on religion. I would not be surprised if they stopped sending them to school. I don't know what PK is. There was a movie called PK which I have not seen, but I don't know what your reference is here. How did the lenders provide the money when they knew they couldn't? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, this question I have not understood. This question is not clear. And women's voting rights, isn't that based on their Islamic teachings? Islam does not say anything about voting as far as my knowledge is concerned. No religion says, because all the religious books, whether it's the Quran or the Bible or any other religious book for that matter, you know, no book, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Sikh, has mention of voting in the present sense. In the present modern sense of, you know, having a ballot and people going and stamping their ballot or, you know, pressing the button on the EVM machine and all. Of course, that was not there. So I don't think there are any, you know, the rights as we understand them today and rights as they were understood more than 1,000 years back were totally different. But the rest of your question, I'm sorry, I have not understood. Abhishesh, Shesh. The question is not why Pakistan is taking loans. It's why IMF is giving it despite knowing that all the money goes to their army and is looted. They know that Pakistan won't be able to return the money and yet they are pouring. IMF is controlled by the United States of America. IMF does not have any funds of its own. Different countries give money to IMF. You see, or the World Bank for that matter. They give contributions and out of that loans are given to the rest of the world. How do you think America controls Pakistan? By money. And how does America give money? It's not that, you know, Joe Biden is going to go to Islamabad with a suitcase full of cash and give it. This is given through, let's say, 300 million given through the polio program, anti-polio program, 300 million given. Girls' education, another 200 million. Women rights, 100 million given. So suddenly you have $500 million given to Pakistan under various heads. Clean water, education, healthcare. The state of education and healthcare in Pakistan is pathetic. But they keep on getting money under one head or the other. And this money is given not because they want back the money. Of course they do. But not because they want it primarily. It's given because that is how you control Pakistan. That's your hook. You know, everything needs to have a hook. That's your hook against Pakistan. Today, America has given money to Pakistan. Pakistan will do whatever America wants it to do. China has given money. Pakistan will do whatever China wants. See, look at Pakistan as a big shopping mall. Everything is up for sale. So in one shop you have their army. In the other shop, this is a huge shopping mall, right? In one shop you'll have the judiciary. Third shop you'll have the bureaucracy. Fourth shop you'll have the media and the journalist. Fifth shop you'll have the courts. Sixth shop you'll have the people of Pakistan. Everything is on sale. Do you have the money? Go and buy. It's a very clean, a very transparent system in Pakistan. Everything is for sale. Honor is for sale in Pakistan. Morals are for sale. Ethics are for sale. Their army is for sale. Everything is for sale. Which is why Pakistanis accept money. You see, you accept money when you don't have money and you're in dire straits. But for 76 years, Pakistan is always in dire straits. Nobody remembers Pakistan not being in dire straits. Pakistan is always under under the shadow of an emergency or something like that. Sometimes it's a military emergency, sometimes it's an educational emergency, sometimes it's a health emergency. There's always some emergency or the other in Pakistan, which is what everybody takes advantage of. And Pakistanis, by the way, are very happy to be taken advantage of. Thank you for watching this video, ladies and gentlemen. If you like this video, press the like button, subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to press the bell icon. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram, Bharat Mata Ki Jai.